Hello everyone and welcome back. I'm Shorty, your host. Today's topic is going to be on high poles and the duties of a high pole pilot car. It's probably the most stressful position in the group between chase, lead, and then the high pole. Your duties are to make sure to let the driver know about branches overhanging on the roads, low wires, low overpasses, trestles, whatever. If your high pole hits it, you need to let the driver know how high you hit on it. We'll just make this easy. Let's say a load is 15.6 high. You'll set your pole for 15.10 to 15.11. It varies on the driver will tell you usually what to set it for, but you want to set your pole for 4 to 5 inches over the height of the load, because going down the freeway, the load will bounce with the airbags, the air suspension on the truck. So you'll gain or lose, a few pounds. Quite a few of the overpasses through California, Montana, and Oklahoma, you actually have to let the air out of the bags completely so you can get about a 5-inch drop to get underneath them, and then you put the air back in. But you want to set your high pole for 4 to 5 inches above what the height of the load is stated on the permit. That way it allows for the bounce and allows for some comfort. Plus, depending on how you watch your pole, a lot of guys just get a big 6x6 mirror, put it on your dash at an angle so you look out and you see up and you see the tip of your pole. That is required. Okay, it's not I don't have one, I don't want one, the sun blocks, hits it just right in the afternoon, blah blah. It doesn't matter. You have to watch the tip of your pole. You cannot see it from the driver's seat unless you've got a sunroof, and if it's a moonroof where you can it's coated, it's tinted, that is not legal, because you cannot see exactly how far down the pole you hit. So a lot of guys like myself, I run a video camera back on my sign, shine straight up to where it is, and I can tell within a half inch as to where it is on it, where you're touching. So if you say, oh, I hit it at 2 inches, the driver knows to slow down and maybe drop his bags to go under it. 99% of the time it's going to be in your routing to go up and over. Take the off ramp, go over the road and get right back on. But sometimes they miss. And this is why a high pole should stay no less than a half a mile in front of the load. In some states even further, because the off-ramp is a good half a mile. So, and that driver has to be able to slow down and take that exit before getting there. So usually when I'm running a high pole, I'm running 3/4 of a mile out in front. You're less than a mile, so you've got good communication between you, but you're far enough ahead that the driver can make move. He can stop if he has to and get out of the way, pull over to the side to figure out what we're going to do. Soon as you hit it, pull off to the shoulder, make sure he stops or takes the exit. If there's no on-ramp, then you've got to figure out what to do. So normally you try to get the driver to stop before the exit, and that's why you stay out in front so much. A lot of guys, I see them running high pole and they're 1/4 of a mile or less, And by the time they hit it, grab the mic, I hit the bridge, the truck's already on it. The truck is already underneath that overpass. You cannot do it at a quarter of a mile. Half a mile is even tight, especially if you're running at freeway speeds, which most trucks can do with 120, 140, 160,000 pounds. They can run 65, 70 mile an hour with no problem. So just be out in front and make sure you watch for overhangs, bridges, railroad trestles. They're the baddest because they usually just pave underneath, and they keep on raising up. So a lot of times they don't replace the sign that says what the height is every time they add 3 inches of asphalt. You have to watch for cars, trucks, pedestrians, bicyclists on the shoulder, how far off they are. It's just like being a lead. You have to let the driver know they're there. And you are in charge, 100% in charge of the routing from the state, county, and the city. You'll have a state routing for going down the freeway. When you take that exit, if you're in a town, you will have a city routing to get through the town. If you're out of a city limits, you're going to get a county routing. So you're going to have to read 3 different kinds of routings from the different government agencies. Excuse me. So you get used to them, though, especially if you just run in your state. My one suggestion, and I'm not trying to belittle anybody, stay away from high pole for at least 2 years. 1 year, okay. In most states, you don't make a whole lot more money. Well, you don't make any more money per mile running high pole. Not yet. As soon as the new bill passes, which should be this year, high pole operators are going to have to carry a high pole insurance of $10 million. And that'll barely cover an overpass. I mean, because if that load hits it, it's your fault if you're the high pole. There is no excuses. It is your fault if you're a high pole and that load hits. So, and the state, city, transportation, everybody will come on your insurance. So they're looking at making the high pole be a certification all on its own. They're looking at making a high pole insurance, which is $10 million, because this last year there was 1,100 oversized loads that hit overpasses, and the pilot car ran because he knew he was at fault. So just be careful how you do it. And I'll show you here with I got 2 different high poles here that I use. And there's ways that are required, that are suggested, that will guarantee your pole will not change height. Okay. This is one pole I use currently right now. It's called the Wonder Pole. It's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sections to it. I can go up to 24 feet high. In between each of your sections, they twist, and you lengthen each one out like this. You have to have hose clamps. When you get it set to the point, tighten it up, it's not very loose, slide that down to where it's right on the top and tighten it in. It's a backup to where when you're going down the road and this thing's flying at 60 miles an hour, it's bouncing up and down. A lot of times they'll start shrinking. And over a couple hundred miles, you can lose a couple inches. So it's real helpful. When you buy these brand new, Barney's in Portland or Barney's online, Pilot Car Superstore, I'm getting nothing from them to say them. They're just who I go through, and they're who I buy stuff from. They're not giving me any money. I'm not doing this as an advertisement, because it's just the best places to buy them, because it's guaranteed you're going to get what you ordered. You get a set of the hose clamps with the butterflies on them. Okay, so you can hand tighten them. Perfect. They last a little while. They usually end up breaking. That's why all of mine are gone. They lasted about a year, and they just snap off. And then you just go ahead and you either use a screwdriver or a wrench, crescent wrench, pair of pliers, whatever, and you just snug them down to where it doesn't move. Now the Wonder Pole comes with this kind of stinger. Okay, this is your top, so you can see that this is 6 inches, so you know about where it's hitting if you hit something right in here. This sets down in about a foot or 6 inches into your top of your pole, and you put a miniature hose clamp on it to make sure it stays on there. These are great. They're good for about 6 or 8 hits at 60 miles an hour. This one is called the Rattler. It was my favorite go-to, but I found after a couple years of using it that these mounts on here that lock down your sections, they're very easy to use. I mean, real easy to use. They get brittle and break. I've got one broke here, I've got one broke here, I've got another one broke here. This one's gone completely. I love using it. It's extremely heavy duty. If this was just different. Now you can buy replacements for these new sections, and I just haven't done it yet. I'm going to. I just haven't done it. But also on these, in between each one, you need to put a hose clamp. Same as the other one. It's just a backup guarantee. Now what I like about the Rattler is its stinger. This guy here. I hope you can hear that. There's a rod inside the outer section. When you hit something, you not only hear it, but you feel it in the car. I mean, I've hit limbs at 10 miles an hour, and it shakes the car. It's incredibly loud. And as you can see, I've got a hose clamp on there, and that's where it locks down to. Because I had to modify my Wonder Pole to accept this, because it's a bigger stinger than the stinger that comes with the Wonder Pole. The Wonder Pole, you'll get 3 stingers with the package. The Rattler, you get 1. But you can reorder them for $35 each. I think they were. Don't quote me on that. It's been a while since I bought one. This one here I've had, oh my gosh, over 6 years. And I use it on every load that I'm running high pole. So it's incredibly strong. They last. After a while, they start to bend over. You just bend them up flat. That's it. If they do start bending, you let them get a little warm, and you can straighten them back up. But I don't need it. That's mainly your deals. But like I was saying, please don't jump right into high pole. Get experience reading routings. Get experience being around the loads, around the trucks, and just take care of your driver. I mean, that's the biggest thing. Is you're there for him. They're paying you to be there. So ask them questions. What does he want to know? You know, if you can afford it, get a height pole. It's a pole similar to this that'll stretch out to 20 feet, but then it's got a bar that goes out like this, 5 feet. So you can do this over the top of the load and figure out exactly how high it is, and it's got measurements down the side. That way you know for a fact how high they are. The last load that hit a bridge up in Washington, They had it on the permit that the load was a certain height, but nobody did a height check. They just, well, my trailer's this high, the load's this, here's how high I am. Wrong. They were off by about 8 inches. So they're a little spendy. They're about $149. These here run about $189. But if you're going to get into it, don't do a painter's pole, please. I see a lot of them out there. After they've been used for a summer, by the second summer, they're brittle. They don't bend very well at 60 mile an hour down the freeway. I've seen them broken in half going down the road. The last time I was coming out of Sacramento, California, and a high pole load was coming north, and I was coming home. I was deadheading from Sacramento back home, and I went by him, and I saw his pole was laying on his roof, and it broke right halfway, and it was a painter's pole with a CB antenna on the end for a stinger. And I just cannot believe that guys will put their home, their cars, their family at risk to save $100. I really can't believe it. But a lot of guys do it, and they get away with it. You will never work for a major oversized load company with one. As soon as the driver sees that you're using a painter's pole, you will never work for that company again, especially some of the big boys. ATS, Christian Brothers, all of them. They will never call you again if you're using that. So don't get into high pole until you know you're ready for it. Don't let somebody push you into doing it. And you'll know when you say, I can do this. It may only be 6 months. If you've been around trucks and you've been around loads, it could be up to a couple of years, or you never do it at all. I know a lot of drivers that they won't even do a lead. They strictly do chase. That's it. That is all they do. And I know guys that only do local. They won't go more than 100 miles from home. You make decent money in most areas. I mean, I live in a town of 900 population. For me, any load I get, I'm traveling 100 miles north or south, either Medford, Eugene, Portland, to get a load. Sometimes Klamath Falls, 170 miles away. So it's usually a deadhead for me to get to a load that's going to go somewhere, and I'm going to make some decent money. I do get quite a bit of local stuff because I'm tied in with a lot of the logging companies around, and I help them move their loads. It's cheaper for them to hire me than it is to pull a mechanic and a truck out of their shop for a whole day to move 3 or 4 loads. They rent me and my truck on a day-to-day. So I've got special deals I make with them that it just makes it worthwhile. So, but if you live in some of the bigger towns, Sacramento, Reno, Salt Lake City, Seattle, any big city, there is incredible amounts of loads, and they hurt for pilots. I got offered a load here the other day to come down to Walnut, California, which is south out of it's outside of Los Angeles, and they were going to pay me 50 cents a mile deadhead to go 592 miles from my house to them to take a load because there were no pilots down there. Well, none that they trusted. They called out 2. They had painter's poles, and they turned them away. Most of these companies are not going to trust a $2, $3, $4, $5 million load to a $19 Lowe's high pole. I mean, it's not worth it, and it's not worth it to the high pole, to the operator. So just be aware, and be ready for this part of it, but learn the routings, and that cannot be stated any deeper or harder. Learn how to read a routing. I have ordered some routings from 5 different states. They should be here in the next week. I asked them I told them what I was doing here and explaining how to be a pilot car operator, and they've agreed to send me, especially California. I told them I had a load that was 16.4 high and 12 wide, and the total truck and trailer is 110 feet long. So they're routing from Medford, Oregon to the Arizona border on Interstate 10. Is going to be almost 1,700 miles with the way that they're going to route it, because of its length, its width, and its height. So there's certain roads you can be on, there's certain roads you can't be on. There's weight restrictions, bridge restrictions, so those will all be on your listing. But the routing list on this is going to be 4 pages long. And that's take this exit, go 8 miles, turn left, go this way 10 miles, go this way 8 miles, go this way, And unless you're running a laptop computer with a routable mapping program on there, which you do not need. I don't even run mine in there. But the reason being I don't. Most of these roads I've been on. With my 38 years as a driver, I've been up and down most of them, especially on the West Coast and Midwest, and I've got a little bit on the East Coast. I used to haul produce and meat from Packerland out of Green Bay, Wisconsin to Brooklyn, to Hunts Point, New York, up to Boston, all over the Northeast and all over the Southwest, Southeast, everywhere. So you just got to watch yourself, though. Be cautious, be courteous. You're there for the driver, and watch your height and know what his height is. And so if you're coming up and you see a bridge sign that says it's 16.2 and you're 15.11, have him slow down. Don't allow even for that 4 or 5 inch bounce. Just let him slow down and just crawl underneath it. And usually you'll see where the bridge might be a little higher on the left than it is on the right. If it is, have him move over and go through the high side. When you're with an oversized load, you actually have control of the traffic, and that's your biggest concern right there, is keeping that truck safe. Let people know that he's coming. And usually on a high load with a high pole, you're going to have a chase pilot also. So he's back there to block the traffic behind him so he can move around. So just that's really about it for a high pole. It's the most stressful. You've got to keep your eyes open for everything. And you are responsible. And that's the biggest concern that a lot of guys don't go in looking at. You hit one bridge and you're looking at a $10 million rebuild. And that's out of your insurance and out of your pocket. And if your insurance isn't covered for that much, then it's out of your house, your cars, your savings, your checking account. It will wipe you out. That's why I dearly say do not get into high pole for at least minimum a year, if not more. Wait 2 years. Give yourself the experience, and that's the main thing. And it's mainly about reading maps and knowing heights. So I hope this helps a little. If there's any questions, please leave them below. Please subscribe, and I'll be having more of these. Our next talk is going to be about the blocker, which are few and far between for blocker pilots. A lot of your pilots don't even know what a blocker is, but it's usually on super loads where you've got a lead pilot or a high pole, and you've got another pilot out in front of them, and he's the blocker. And we'll get into him. Stay tuned for part 2, and we'll get into some of the required and suggested equipment. So y'all have a good day. Be sure and subscribe. Check out the website at pilotcarmap.com. It's free to join, free to use. Add your car in there. And be sure and remember that when you're on a load and you've left, say, Las Vegas, Nevada, headed for Albuquerque, New Mexico, and you're going to be in Albuquerque on Wednesday, be sure and go in to the editing and edit where you're going to be on that day. Okay? Your marker will show up in Albuquerque then for you. Let's say you deliver Wednesday at 3 o'clock. Show that you're in Albuquerque on Thursday. It's that simple. That way loads can find where you're going to be. They're going to know where you're at on that day. A lot of the trucks I have found have not been posting available loads. They're just going to the pilot car map and they're saying, hey, he's right next to me, I'll call him. And so far that's what they've been doing. I'm trying to get them to go ahead and post the load. At least let people see that they are posting out there. We've got a few guys that are posting, but they're covered in just a few minutes. So it's working fantastically, but not the way I was hoping. I was hoping there'd be a little delay in there before they deleted the load because they were getting so many calls. But anyway, just we'll get into more of that later. Just sign up for the website. It's free to use. And I think that's it. Have a good day.